Well, it is 24 degrees and a very cautious morning here in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. Nonetheless, good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily, your daily dose of sunshine. I'm Maukbe Ogun Yusuf.
It's 27 degrees here in Lagos, and today's date is 20/10/25. Welcome to the show.
Indeed, Ayo, 5 years after the NSAS protest, Abuja has another protest right up its sleeves, and that is the Free Nnamdi Kanu protest, which has been led by activist Omoyele Sowore. This morning, he was on our sister program, Morning Brief, where he spoke about why it was that they were heading out on this protest and why the need to go out on the anniversary of the NSAS protest. He says that everything is about justice, and this should be also about justice. But we do have visuals from the Federal Capital Territory showing that people are moving about quite cautiously. The pictures we're seeing right now were from earlier when Mr. Sowore and co-protesters were gathered outside around the famous Transcorp Hilton Hotel, just right opposite the NCC. So if you know the iconic NCC building, you can see that the National Communications Commission building. You can see it in the pictures where Mr. Sowore and some other protesters were gathered. Well, they since ran away from there. We saw them in the pictures much later, running away from there and saying they were going somewhere else. I did hear in the visual saying that they were going to Berger. Well, we are keeping tabs on that protest. Our correspondent, Friday Okerigbe, has been at the Unity Fountain, which was where the protest was initially designated to hold. They said they were going to march from the Unity Fountain to Aso Rock. Well, the police has been warning in a statement that they should keep off Aso Rock and that there are certain areas that are, protected by law because they had gone to court to secure court judgments earlier. Well, Mr. Sowore and his people, he said some people were arrested when they dispersed from the front of the ICC. He says that they had to leave the place. Nnamdi Kanu's younger brother, according to him, and Nnamdi Kanu's lawyer were arrested by the police. That was what he said earlier. So he did promise that he was going to give us, an update as to what exactly was happening. It's unclear if they've moved to Berger, as he did say in that video, or whether they're now at Citygate, as we're hearing. But our correspondent, Friday Okerigbe, joins us live now. He is on standby covering the protest, wherever it is happening. He's live to bring us news of, what the update is. Friday, it's good to see you. I see you're clad, already ready to cover the protest. There are fears that it could turn violent, and certainly no media house will be taking chances. So can you bring us up to speed with what you're currently seeing and what you've heard so far?
Thank you, Makbe. We came to the Unity Fountain. That is just behind me here. I don't know how far you can see, but this is actually supposed to be the venue where the protesters are supposed to convene before they will march to the three-arm zone. That is the route leading to the presidential villa, where they ought to actually stage the protest. But this morning, all the roads leading to the city center, the secretariat, the three-arm zone, and of course the Unity Fountain were barricaded by security personnel. And we were able to make our way to the Unity Fountain, the venue where they are supposed to convene before proceeding for the protest. We also came here, we saw that the place was under lock and key. We have security personnel that are here, but no single protester is here. So that is the situation as we speak. We have seen, like the videos I sent in earlier, seen a lot of security patrol in the city. Armed policemen, riot policemen are all stationed in strategic areas around the city center. Like you also made reference to earlier on, we also saw the video. Sowore posted it, of course, on his handle, that he was, of course, coming to Unity Fountain when he was accosted by security personnel. And I understood that they were tear gassed and chased or dispersed. So as we speak, we do not know where the protesters are going to meet. Some are saying that they will reconvene at a beggar roundabout to continue with their protest. Others are saying that they will be at the city gate, that is the entrance to the city center. But no one can actually say authoritatively. We reach out to some colleagues who are already at beggar. They confirmed to us that there is no protester on site rather, in Bega. And we are trying to make our way from the Unity Fountain and see how we can make our way to the city gate, where they may also be meeting, going by the records, what they have done in the past. When they are chased from the city center, they usually go to the city gate to do their protest. So we are hoping that they may go there. We're trying to reach out to members in Showore group, whether they can speak to us where they are going to meet and carry out this protest. We've not been able to get feedback from there. So we are just opening our ears, keeping our ears down to see if we can get just a clip of what is going to happen from their end today. Back to you, Mark.
All right, Friday. So if I get you correctly, right now you're standing around Unity Fountain, and that road is called the Shehu Shagari Road. It's a Monday morning. It's usually very busy. We should be seeing a lot of traffic behind you, but clearly from what I can see here, just a car or vehicle or two have passed by since you've been speaking with us. So clearly that road has been cordoned off. Is that correct?
You are very correct, Mark. And it is instructive to note that it's not just this road. In fact, all the roads leading to the city center are cordoned off by security personnel. So just a few meters from here is the Transcorp Hilton. It's a popular road, Agoyunsi Road, that leads from the Transcorp Hilton to ICC to NUC. Just that road. It's a very busy road, but I can confirm to you that the road is a ghost. It's like a graveyard, so to say, because it's quiet. And the reason is because all the adjoining roads that brings commuters, motorists to the city center and to the Maitama axis where the Unity Fountain is are all cordoned off by security personnel because of the protest that is supposed to hold this morning.
All right, Friday, we will keep tabs with you on your way to the city gate, and we'll expect updates. We ask you to please stay safe as you go about your legitimate duty. Thank you for your coverage.
It's a pleasure.
Well, our correspondent there, Friday Okirigbe, keeping tabs on the protest that's supposed to happen today. As a result of the expectations of that protest and the blockade that has happened in certain area, it has caused a backlog of traffic, pictures of which we'll show you now, just the snippet. I mean, some of our colleagues were able to catch them on their way to work this morning. This is some of the traffic that this has caused around the Yanya area, Yanya Karu area, as a result of some of the key linkages that have been blocked. The Shehu Shagari Way is where a lot of civil servants, I mean, in fact, as a matter of fact, is where the Federal Civil Service is located, and a lot of people make their way into town from along this route, and it does appear that as a result of that blockade, there's been nowhere for traffic to pass through. But we certainly will keep tabs on the development around this protest. Fortunately for us, though, our guest was able to make it to the studio this morning. Mr. Kenneth Okonkwo joins us this morning. He's a lawyer, columnist, and public affairs analyst. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Good morning, Maupe, and good morning, viewers at home. It's my pleasure being here again.
Shall I say that I am relieved to see that you were able to make it this morning, but I do not know what was on your mind, knowing that this protest was going to happen today, and we do know that when protests like this are happening, people tend to be cautious around, yes, on their way to work or around even their businesses. So what was it like for you making it down here?
Well, you know, as a man of faith, I've always believed that God will make a way, even where there is no way.
Okay.
And Nigerians every day are subjected to a whole lot of miseries, hardship, and sufferings. Whenever you're going out to do anything on behalf of Nigerians, you have to take yourself as an ordinary Nigerian. And you have to subject yourself to the risk that every other person is taking. Nothing is going to stop me from doing what I've made up my mind to do.
Well, I'm glad that you're here.
It is the grace of God.
What do you
and the
make?
determination to keep moving no matter the circumstance.
What do you make of this protest, though? The Free Nnamdi Kanu protest. There are those who are saying, look, it is legitimate. They are well within their rights to protest. It is enshrined in the Constitution. And there are those who are saying this protest is premature. The matter is still in court. There's progress being made on the matter in court. It seemed at some point that, yes, there was a lull, especially after he was brought back from Kenya. But then there are those who are saying it seems that new vigor has been given the case. Just last week, we heard from the Nigerian Medical Association that he's fit to stand trial. And it does appear that the justice system is now determined to take its course. What are your thoughts on the protests which seem to want to ground the Federal Capital Territory today?
Well, first and foremost, the Constitution is very clear. Section 36, subsection 5, that every Nigerian citizen is deemed to be innocent until proved guilty. A nation that detains a human being more than 7 years, and you have him in your custody, and yet you couldn't even reach a judgment as to the culpability of his crime, is a nation that is failing in the dispensation of justice. Justice delayed is justice denied. When it comes to the issue of crime, the Constitution is very clear that the accused or defendant should be judged within a reasonable time. It is very unreasonable to keep a man in detention for almost 7 years. What are you judging? This is telling on the judicial process of Nigeria. I tell you again, in the Constitution, they say the Attorney General, while making any decision as to charging anybody, discontinuing or taking over any criminal charge, should have regard for public interest, the interest of justice, and the need not to abuse the legal process. For me, in the case of Nnamdi Kanu, the legal processes have been abused. Nobody will remain sane to be in jail for more than 7 years that a case is being tried. People are frustrated. People believe that if you do not find anything against this man, release him or reach a political solution. That is what is bringing all these things. It's a result of frustration that there is no interest of justice served in this. So diligent prosecution is one of the pillars of justice in a criminal offense. I do not see that diligence. And the federal government is failing on all fronts. Remember, we have pleaded that this should be treated as a political issue and settled out politically so that every party will go home in peace. And then you are the one who arrested him. You are the one who put him on trial. You are the one who is delaying for up to 7 years without giving clear justice. So the federal government is failing on all rounds. And as they keep failing, they are making their matters worse.
So do you think this is really, you've said this is a political issue.
Should be a political issue.
It should be.
Yes.
But is it?
That's what I'm saying. The government should treat it as a political issue. Remember, during the colonial masters, where people were fighting for our independence, the colonial masters saw them also as adversaries. But they were genuine fighters of freedom. So in this world, there will always be two aspects of an issue. You know, the kind of cost-benefit issue, if it is in business. What is a cost to somebody is a benefit to another. That is how you treat political issues. To some people, he's fighting and agitating for their rights and freedom. You should also take that into consideration. To you, you may say he may have infringed on some laws. Why doing that? You should take that into consideration. And if you're a wise government, you will come to a negotiation table and let each side make a shift and come to a compromise and settle this issue politically.
The issue which he agitates for, which IPOB has agitated for years, is something that countries generally find very difficult to deal with, which is the issue of self-determination. How do you think that that can be resolved, given the fact that even if the federal government were to say, look, politically, we release him today, that certainly will not stop the agitations for people who believe that they should be given a separate country of their own?
Very good. And that is why you should not attribute it to him, that he is the originator and the perpetrator of this. I think it predates him. Certainly. And might even outlive him. So it is about the government learning how to treat agitators and how to dialogue with them. Because as you have aptly stated it didn't start with him. We've had MASOP, we've had other organizations. It may certainly not end with him. So it's about people expressing in their different ways their manners of frustration with the system. When things were so good in Nigeria, I wasn't hearing all these agitations. But whatever name you call them, it is frustration to the suffering, to the hunger and hardship in the country. That is the truth.
I was going to ask though, what side are you on? Are you on the side of the protesters? Do you support their cause, or do you think that since this matter is already in court, pressure should be applied to the federal government to let this matter run as quickly as possible?
Very good. I am on the side of rule of law. I just told you that Nigerians have the right to protest. Section 40. And you can't take it away from them. It's their natural right, innate in them. And the Supreme Court has said, beyond exercising these rights, no human being can live a civilized life. So it is their innate natural right to protest. And it should be encouraged in a democracy. Because when you bottle up all these things, then there will be an implosion, an explosion. But when people are allowed to express themselves, according to Section 39, they will ease off their anger, they will feel they've been heard, and then the government will also use it to understand the feeling of the people and know the solutions they are from and they are at. So the issue is that it is a support to rule of law. What does rule of law say? Somebody is innocent until you prove him guilty. And you must prove him guilty within a reasonable time. When it's unreasonable, it's no longer rule of law. And for me, keeping somebody for 7 years in the name of trial is unreasonable. So whatever it is, it should end now. Nnamdi Kanu should be released. Either the justice system moves at the speed it ought to move. In our laws, criminal trial ought to be held every day until judgment. That is what the law says. So I am on the side of law. I'm on the side of justice. Whether there's marginalization against the Southeast, that is given. So whether people will agitate, that is legal. Their method of agitation should also be legal. And if the government believes somebody has exceeded, then when you're applying the law, apply it legally, judiciously and judicially. And in the case of Nnamdi Kanu, with respect, I can say they have not lived up to it.
Today is also the 5th anniversary of the NSAS protest. That was one protest that we saw a lot of young people come out to express their displeasure with the way the Nigeria police, or will I say an arm of the Nigeria police, had treated a number of young people over the years, indiscriminate detention. And after a while, the protest morphed into something else and morphed into a general protest of complaint against the state in general and the state of affairs. Sadly, that protest did not end well. I mean, in terms of the conflict that degenerated between federal government forces and the protesters. And that had implications for a lot of people, had implications for businesses. I mean, we saw what happened afterwards, the aftermath of the protest, where businesses were, destroyed and all of that. So on days like this, when, those sort of protests are declared, people usually are very cautious. Businesses are wary. How do we balance this need for protest, which is a legitimate right, and the fears? Because the protesters, yes, they're protesting a certain cause, and I'm sure a lot of people share their cause for justice, but they also fear that it might not end well. At the end of the day, it affects whatever little that they have been able to build within the system. On a sister program this morning, we saw, a complainant come to talk about how the government of the day has pulled down the little business that they have been able to build. That is a demolition, is something different. But when protests now generate to something that actually affects lives and livelihoods, How do we call that balance?
This is where the efficiency from the state comes into view. Abroad, it is the duty of the security agencies to maintain law and order. And that includes protecting the protesters and ensuring that they are doing their protest in accordance with the law. There's nothing wrong with the police guiding the protesters on the ways they should protest to make sure that it remains peaceful. If you recall, just like you have enunciated the issue of the NSAS, when it started, one of their demands was the welfare of the police, telling you everybody in Nigeria is under torture, telling you the nation and the government has failed everybody, including the security agencies. We have seen it. That's why I said most of what you're seeing in Nigeria is a manifestation of the suffering, of the hunger and hardship in the system, including that of the security agencies. When a man has not eaten from morning and is carrying a rifle, he is always triggered and can be irrational in his behavior against human beings. So the whole idea is that things are not working because the indices are not doing well. And the government is reading out statistics that is more tormenting. You know what George Sylvester said? He said, when a nation's growth is on paper, but its people sinks in hunger, say that's not progress. That is polished poverty wearing a mask of statistics. So when people are suffering and the government of the day is using fake statistics to mask their suffering, it becomes more frustrating because they know there is no end in sight. Because when the government is making that mask, they are hiding under a mischief for the suffering to continue, not a sincere desire to bring about solutions. So Nigeria has become a theater where the government is not governing well and the people are not trusting the government. And that is what you're seeing in the protests. When the NSAS met with government agreed at the initial stage to answer all their demands. But you could still see that lack of trust. They will still go and sit down and say, until we see it implemented. Because to them, once we leave this arena, it will be forgotten. And in all honesty, what they said was right. ASU went into agreement with federal government since 2009. Immediately they leave the table, the government forgets it. Till today, 2009 agreement is still being brought to the fore, and strike is being called because of it. So government must live up to the true meaning of its name, protecting the security and welfare of the people and ensuring under the concept of pacta sunt servanda that a party to an agreement must respect the terms of the agreement. If the government starts respecting the agreement it has with Nigerian people, starting from the social contract, this will build trust in the minds of the people, and continually that trust will build. And when the government makes a promise, the people will not sit down and say, you must fulfill it before we leave here. That is what is going on.
All right, I'm not alone on this program. I know that my colleague Ayo certainly has questions for you. Ayo, over to you.
Well, thank you, Markwe. I think quite significantly a number of things are being covered. But Mr. Konko, and you've spoken to a few things, and I'd like you to, help us understand what are the missing links here. You've cited the ASU Federal Government 2009 agreement. You've also referenced the fact that the issues that brought up the Free Nnamdi Kanu protest predated Nnamdi Kanu and may even outlive him. You're probably referring to the Civil War and the fact that, as you also said earlier, the Saudis, the kind of political sidelining, if I can use that term, of the Saudis is something you said, according to your precise word, is a given. And there are a number of other things. You talked about the NSAS, that the issues of NSAS were more about welfare of the police as opposed to, just agitation for agitation's sake. Between 2009 and 2025, a good number of people that were in government are no longer in government. Well, supposedly. Between the Civil War and now, so many waters have passed under the bridge. It begs the question of exactly how do we forestall these kinds of protests? If government is a continuum, where do we have the roadblocks that hinder the progress that should have taken us way beyond this place, such that we won't have the protests of issues that date back decades?
Very good. The simple answer to your question is Nigeria is under the siege of incompetent and corrupt leaders. Can you imagine in a nation if the money invested in our refineries had been used to repair our refineries and they are working and we are not importing and fuel is very cheap? In other words, you have reasonable energy cost. Can you imagine in a nation where our educational institution has continued its growth right from 1960 without this abuse on the lecturers and the students through meager salary and through not taking care of the environment of learning? Can you imagine if such an educational institution is empowered with the resources it needs? Can you imagine if our healthcare system is working as it's supposed to work? Can you imagine a nation that is blessed with oil and with solid minerals? If these minerals have been harnessed and there is fair distribution of wealth amongst everybody, can you imagine such a nation? Do you think there would be agitations? People wouldn't even have the time. They would be busy working. They would be busy inventing. Can you imagine a nation if all the money pumped into electricity, they have utilized it to give us 24 hours electricity? Can you imagine who is going to go to protest? People are going to protest because they are idle. They are hungry. Things are hard. It is not because they want to go and risk their lives using their head to defend a bullet. Nigeria is a nation that is potentially great. And on the day we have free, fair, credible election that will help us to elect competent leaders who would have the people as their focus.
And that brings the
in 20
question.
years, we'll become a superpower nation.
My apologies,
I have
Mr.
prayed,
Ogonkwo.
and
Just
I believe that in my generation, I shall see this country metamorphose into that.
Now,
So
that raises the question. Just a second. Just a second, sir.
Failure of leadership.
Just 1 second, Mr. Ogonkwo. Perhaps that raises the question. When you talk about the fact that, you know, elected officials and all, it raises the question of, when we talk about government, exactly who is government? Between 1966, 67, and now, we've had quite a number of governments. But there is always a continuum. That is what we expect is the case. Since 2009 and now, the maximum number of years an elected official has is 4 years, renewable every 4 years, only for 2 terms for the executive, and I'm not sure what the term is for legislators. But we have civil servants that are always there, maximum 35 years or until they turn a particular age. So where is the but? Is the question that I'm asking. Do you think the civil service could have helped to bring to the attention the elected officials, to the attention of the elected officials, that, guys, these outstanding issues are there? Or do you think it is something that, you know, every elected official just comes and just ends what was on ground before? I don't know if you understand the question I'm asking.
Yes. If I understood you very well, you're talking about the civil service, the elected people, who is to be blamed, or how would the solution come? The truth is that what we are suffering in Nigeria is systemic corruption. It is systemic because there is no deterrence. In a nation where corruption is not deterred, when you want to fight it, you are at a risk. The civil servants are now colluding with the politicians to extort Nigeria and to manipulate the process for their benefit. So the issue here is that you see how corruption is walking on 2 legs, and even the ones that are charged, convicted down to Supreme Court, you will see politicians like Tinubu just did, pardoning some corrupt people that even the Supreme Court has declared corrupt and jailed.
Yeah, but
when you pardon such people,
let me just quickly
you're sending a message to people that there is no need. They are sticking out their neck against such people, because such people will come back to the system as elected, and they will begin to take their pound of flesh on the people that genuinely fought that they should be punished.
So, Mr. Okonkwo, just a moment, though. Yes. I mean, because some people say, where there is no sin, there is no need for pardon. I mean, yes. where no crime has been committed and, conviction secured, there will be no need for pardon. And so the people perhaps who need a pardon are those who have been convicted, yes. Even by the Supreme Court. Yes. And in reaction to the uproar that, the public outcry, so to speak, we saw a message from the Attorney General's office saying that it's not the last word had not been heard on it, that there is a review still going on, because they have to now, take a second look at it and then give the list to the Comptroller General of Prisons or the Correction Service, and that is yet to take place. From your mind, or to your mind, what do you think, or do you think that there is really a space? Because I've also heard lawyers say this is medicine after death. If the president has already given his pardon to these people and it's gone to the Council of State, there is nothing more that can be done. What are your thoughts, especially as a lawyer?
You see, this government keeps exposing its incompetence every day. Doesn't mean that they talk before they think. After announcing people, after going through the Council of State, you have come down to sit down to say you want to review the process. That is in itself incompetence, standing on two legs. But let me tell you the story of what one justice said. One brilliant justice from the Southwest. He said he was transferred to a city. And in that city, he was welcomed with newspaper review. People knocked down, killed on the road. Careless drivers. Accident. You know what he said? He said when he sat down, the first case they brought to him, he gave the person a very harsh sentence to jail. The person that killed somebody, a driver. He said he did it the second time, and he said it ceased. Why am I saying this? The whole idea of punishment is not in the desire of any country to inflict injuries on its citizens, but for deterrence. Nobody is rejoicing that some people are in jail or some people are facing execution. But how do you deter others from doing it? So what Tinubu is doing is encouraging people to do it. So nobody is saying that to be merciful is not good. No, but you have to matchmake what you are trying to be merciful at with the justice of the situation and the public interest. I told you this, Section 174, subsection 3 of the Constitution. You have to check the public interest. Somebody murdered, a lady murdered the husband in cold blood, and you're telling me, oh, release her. You will see other people on the same matter, murdering their husbands the next day. Everybody has one problem or the other. But when you remember what the consequences will be, then you will forbear. You will take a better option, apart from shedding innocent blood. Do you know what it means theologically? And I talk as a theologian. It says the blood of the murderer that is needed to clean out the cry of the blood of the innocent against the land. That's there in the Bible. The blood cries against the land when you murder an innocent person. And if you are a leader and you go to ignorantly forgive such a person who murdered without a cause, you have become an accomplice spiritually to that blood that is crying against the land. We have to be very careful. You must exercise the privilege of pardon or prerogative of mercy, having the interest of the public, having the interest of justice, and making sure you do not abuse the legal process.
So is it too late?
To do what?
To review it. You
know, with this government, anything is possible. For me, I may not say it is too late. I'm saying it's not right for you to do something and then create an impression in the mind of somebody that you have forgiven, and then coming back to say, no, I have not forgiven again. It is simply distasteful, and for me, whether it is right or wrong, it's inelegant. And this government speaks volume. And the Attorney General of the Federation, I'm sorry, he has not impressed me on this. Because he's the chairman of such committee that makes such recommendation. So what is he saying? Is he coming to tell us now that he didn't know what he was doing when he did that? Me, I believe they were wrong.
Well, it's a fine place to leave it, while we'll wait to see, just how the Office of the Attorney General reacts to some of the legal issues that have been raised with the review, which he says might still be possible with the pardon that has been granted by the president. But while we wait for that, we have to thank you for coming on Sunrise Daily and giving your thoughts as candidly as you always do. Mr. Kenneth Okonkwo is a lawyer, columnist, and public affairs analyst. Thank you once more.
Thank you very much.
We'll take a break at this time. When we come back, we'll be taking a look at an entire matter around the environment. It's a big deal. A Nigerian has now been appointed to a UN body, and we'll be talking about it in detail when we come back. Please stay with us.
Thank you for staying with us. As Mark mentioned earlier, I want to talk about development. And there is this Global Sustainable Development Report, which is a flagship UN document produced every 4 years. And it is prepared from the Office of the UN Secretary General to assess global progress on the 2030 Agenda and the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Well, our guest this morning is Dr. Doyin Adeleke. He is CEO. He's an environmentalist and CEO of Global Growth Africa. He joins us in the studio. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.
I really have a difficulty starting this question, but tell us, first of all, what's the background that you have to this whole idea? You are co-chair of the Independent Growth Group of Scientists. So tell us, what's the background that we should be looking at that could have prepared us for this moment?
Okay, thank you so much. So it's, good morning, Nigerians. So one is that, of course, the world have been assessing development on different metrics over decades and centuries now. But by 20, it was almost based on economic parameters over for decades, And then around year 2000, so whenever the United Nations is working on development and they have a framework, there is the learning curve, which is one of the things I'm part of now. So as part of the lessons they learned is that led into year 2000 was the fact that everything was almost economic GDP. And we can't say when life expectancy is low, education is not so fantastic, but they are growing in GDP. We cannot say such a nation is holistically developing. That brought in the social pillars of development, social pillar of development, and that brought in issue of, when you look at MDGs, for instance, you have economic and social parameters. Now, as of course, over the 15 years of implementation of the MDGs, and you also find that majorly it was interaction with the government and things like that. Now, by the time we moved into 2015, they have learned for 15 years on the implementation of the MDGs. They realized that while we are growing economically, and we are doing well socially as, planet. If we are polluting the environment, we are doing all of this, making all of this progress at the expense of the environment, the negative feedback from the environment could often come to eat up the gains of our social and economic progress. Take, for instance, COVID. COVID, whatever people have a lot of philosophy around it, but it's zoonotic. Bird flu is zoonotic. And zoonotic disease are diseases that are transferred from animals to human beings. And how did that happen? By the encroachment, as we're growing, and then we deforest and all that, we are breaking the natural wall, the invisible wall between humanity and nature.
Now, my apologies.
Thank you.
Let's go straight into how these things connect with the people. Many times when we talk about these issues of sustainable development, millennium development, we could go all academic. How did Nigeria perform in the MDGs before we got into SDGs and all? But my question, perhaps particularly around the environment, is always the awareness of people. Is always whether or not people even understand what this whole conversation about the environment is. And unfortunately, most of the environmental issues we talk about are more in the rural areas than the urban, centers, because we seem to have cannibalized all of the natural, order of things in the urban centers. So we have more plastered areas as opposed to, grassy nature and all of those things. How well would you say Nigeria is communicating the challenges or peculiarity of the environment to its people, particularly in suburban and the rural areas of the country?
Well, it's quite dicey to give a specific response in terms of level and all that. But I know, one, I think that the government needs to do more on that, certainly. Many people, even people in government, you talk about rural communities, you'll be surprised that people in urban centers don't even know anything about some of these things at all, and the implication and the connection to their lives. Because overall, we're not in love and we're not passionate about the environment because of the environment. We're passionate about the environment because of ourselves. I was living in a city where 900 people were dying daily for 1 week during COVID-19. So when the flood thing happened in Maiduguri, it wasn't the environment that just suffered. Lives were lost, billions were lost. So we must give kudos to non-profit organizations and CSOs. CSOs are doing quite well, and must commend international partners that are supporting them. But how well is Nigeria as a government, as a nation, and government, and supporting the advocacy, the awareness at rural level is the question, because that really is lagging, sincerely. However, we must commend some private sector. Private sector are stepping in big time to support non-profit organizations now.
Quickly,
on that.
Where are we now based on data, or at least available data, as far as this global sustainable development goals are concerned?
Yeah, I mean, based on data, there are a number of achievements, but there are a number of lessons to learn, areas to build on. Take, for instance, even starting from the data itself. How much of data do we have? What is the integrity of those data we are using for those assessments, number one? But a lot of it, you see, government, I think government has a lot of projects on ground. Of course, more is needed. However, where a lot of the gap, I think a lot of gap lies, is the understanding of our policy and project handlers of those projects and their connection with the SDGs. SDG is not a sector of its own. It's mainstream within works, environment, energy, transport, and all of that. We have a lot of fantastic projects that have been implemented, but how well have they been aligned with the SDGs? So that is where the issue is. For education, for instance, we're not doing so well. Nigeria has almost about 1/10 of our population out of school. I think a lot needs to be done on that. Energy, we're not so doing well. Nigeria is about 50%, 54% access, electricity alone. But when you break it down, because oftentimes I wrote an article sometimes ago, I said, national averages hide more than it reveals. So when you take Nigeria and say, 54%, okay, well, they are average. But when you move to urban centers, you see that about access rate is about 70-something%, and at the rural community, it's about 20 to 30%. So there's a lot that needs to be done at the rural level. Of course, we must also commend organizations that are supporting energy projects, development partners, energy projects in rural communities. But there is also lack of knowledge on that, because oftentimes, if you are given $1 billion to go and do an energy project in a rural community, for instance, the essence is to facilitate development, right? By the time you put the whole $100 billion on energy, you have used the money suboptimally. The reason is this. When we provide electricity access, the idea is to facilitate economic activity, right? So who gives that woman a loan to start a business with electricity? Who goes to school to buy computers for those children? who buy electrical facility and machine to the hospital that already have electricity access now. So there are a lot of gaps, and that's where I think that the first thing, apart from data, the next thing that policy handlers need to understand is the synergies and trade-offs between the SDGs.
I thought that one of the major issues of the SDGs is partnership, because I saw that partnership is a major component in the MDGs, and it is also in the SDGs.
Number 17.
I believe that Malcolm, my colleague, will want to take you on some specific questions, but so let her be the one to ask you that question. Malcolm, go ahead.
So it's good to have our guests in the studio with you. I wanted to take you up on the visual we saw earlier, which is one of the experiments that you have carried out in your own area as an environmentalist. You know, the solutions to plastic. We're seeing more and more these days, people collecting plastic. It has become quite valuable. Yes, in some areas, you know, people's dustbins are not even allowed to rest in peace because people are looking for this plastic. It's unfortunate that we're not yet in a climb where it is collected separately from the rest of, you know, household or, will I say, communal waste, as the case might be. What precisely were you trying to prove with this experiment, and how wide-scale do you think this can be deployed, given the fact that a lot of, you know, urban areas in our country right now are currently facing the problem with plastic pollution?
Africa, which is the organization I sit on as the executive director. And what we do at Green Good Africa is, it's 3 pillars, basically, sector decarbonization, nature-based solution, environmental justice. But this particular project was done within sector decarbonization. What are we saying? Basically, we're looking at how, you know, when we talk about pollution and the environmental problems, and then we're trying to deploy solutions, and the solutions are separate from the problems. We are not solving the problems. So the sectors that are high polluting, our interest is to target them and see how we can make them less carbon intensive. Now, we've done a lot of things around health, where we make menstruation pads from sugarcane waste and all of that, and so many other projects like that. But particular to this building, we wanted to decarbonize, demonstrate how to decarbonize the building and construction industry. And in the building and construction industry, cement is the most carbon-intensive product. Many people are not aware because the carbon emission does not happen at the point of use. It's at the point of production and transport. Now, anything you do to be able to reduce the volume of cement in construction, then you are reducing the carbon intensity of the building and the carbon footprint, which make it more green. And that was the whole intention. For that building that you saw, we did not use cement for block because no block was used at all. And then we did not use cement for binding materials. And on the other hand, we also took a lot of plastic, about over 27,333 waste plastic bottles were taken away from the streets. So the intention was to demonstrate how to decarbonize. And what does that do, for instance? Now, in this building is bulletproof, at least the brick part, not the windows, because the windows are the normal windows and the doors. Bulletproof, fireproof, and earthquake-proof, and these are scientifically proven. And in terms of the scale, and in terms of the economics, now, when we implemented this project, at the time, the Ibadan, we couldn't, because the building is in Ibadan, because there were no collection, aggregation of waste plastic bottles, the economies of aggregation make the building more expensive, and also in terms of human capital. While we have the knowledge, but the masons that were to work with us, we could only get only a few of them in the country, and we had to hire them from the north. So that made the price a bit more expensive. But if the waste plastic bottle aggregation was sorted, which is now at improved stage now, at least in Lagos and Ibadan, for instance, and then if we're able to train people to have this capacity, I can tell you that the cost of making this kind of building is 50% of what conventional building with using sandcrete blocks will cost, actually. And it can be deployed for any kind of building. Well, actually, we have a program where we're trying to deploy it. We want to build one in Abuja.
Well, I want to believe, my apologies, I want to believe that the NOAs will be very much interested in this. So this sounds to me like one of those Nigeria Happens to Me initiatives. There's a lot to say about this matter, and let's just say that this is one of those many conversations we'll be having. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Dr. Doyin Adeleke is an environmentalist and CEO of Green Growth Africa. We sincerely appreciate it. We haven't even been able to look at the report itself, but we have looked a lot more about the impact and what the people can do. Thank you.
It's great, actually, because we are currently reviewing the past reports as we build on it. Thank you so much.
That's the show this morning. Thank you for the privilege of being a part of your day and the beginning of your week. Amaya Makinde. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Well, bringing you updates on the ongoing protest or situation here in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. We understand that a combined team of the army and police have tear-gassed a crowd, whom we understand are not protesters. They were gathered around the secretariat of the Nigerian Union of Journalists in the Utako area. Well, we ask you to keep it locked on here. Those are the visuals coming to you now from the Utako area, where a combined team of the police and the army were said to have tear-gassed a crowd, whom we understand were not protesters. But our correspondents are certainly on the ground, so we ask you to keep it locked on here on Channels Television as we bring you updates of the situation right here, especially with the protest, or the planned protest going on in the Federal Capital Territory. Thank you for watching. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf. On top of the hour is Business Morning.